The French Open crowd expected drama on the clay that day. But nobody expected one of the most powerful men on the planet to walk into court, Philippe Chatrier, and completely change the atmosphere. On May 26, 2026, while the tournament was already buzzing with excitement, something unbelievable happened that sent the entire stadium into chaos. Thousands of fans packed the arena, waving Philippine flags high above their heads as chants for 20-year-old tennis sensation Alex Eala echoed across the legendary court. The energy felt less like a tennis match and more like a worldwide movement. Every point she played triggered deafening cheers. Every replay on the giant screen made the crowd erupt louder. Paris was witnessing Alex Eala fever in full force. Then suddenly, cameras turned toward the front row. A familiar figure had quietly entered the stadium without any grand entrance or announcement. Elon Musk, the billionaire behind Tesla and SpaceX, casually took his seat among the spectators. Within seconds, whispers spread across the stands. Phones were lifted into the air as fans realized who had just appeared beside the court. Security quickly moved closer, expecting a massive scene. But Musk simply smiled and motioned for everyone to stay calm. He was not there for attention. He was there for Alex Eala. During a break in play, Musk shocked the entire stadium with a gesture nobody saw coming. He stood up carrying a large black duffel bag and walked toward the fans near the court. Instead of promoting Tesla or SpaceX, he began handing out custom-made black shirts featuring the initials E, the colors of the Philippine flag, and one bold word across the back, Laban. The crowd exploded. Fans instantly put the shirts on, waving flags even harder while chanting Alex Eala's name louder than ever before. What started as a tennis match suddenly became a historic moment of pride, passion, and unity. For one unforgettable afternoon in Paris, Elon Musk was not the headline. Alex Eala was. The atmosphere inside the stadium reached another level entirely. In only a few minutes, entire sections of the crowd transformed into a massive sea of black shirts as fans proudly wore the Laban design Elon Musk had handed out moments earlier. The energy was unreal. Every chant shook the arena. Every camera flash captured a scene that looked more like a global movement than a tennis match. Then the videos hit social media. Clips of Musk supporting Alex Eala spread across the internet at lightning speed, collecting millions of views within hours. Sports fans, celebrities, and influencers everywhere were stunned. Nobody expected the billionaire behind Tesla and SpaceX to appear at Roland Garros and openly support a young, unseeded Filipina player fighting for survival on the world stage. But there was a deeper reason why the moment became so powerful. Alex Eala represented far more than tennis. For most young players on the WTA Tour, every tournament already feels like a war. Rankings can rise or collapse overnight. Careers depend on a handful of matches. One bad stretch can destroy months of progress. But for Eala, the pressure was far heavier than rankings or prize money. She carried the dreams of millions of Filipinos watching around the world. Just days earlier, she had barely escaped a brutal first-round battle that pushed her physically and emotionally to the limit. The match included controversial moments and a tense code violation that nearly shattered her concentration. Many rising stars would have folded under that pressure. The non-stop media attention alone can overwhelm even experienced players. Instead, Eala stepped onto the famous red clay with fearless determination. As she looked around court Philippe Chatrier, she saw thousands of Filipino fans filling the stands. Many had traveled across countries and continents just to witness this historic moment in person. Some overseas workers reportedly spent months saving money for the chance to cheer for her in Paris. Their voices united into one thunderous chant that echoed across the stadium. But standing on the opposite side of the net was a dangerous veteran known for dominating on clay courts. She was experienced, aggressive, and fully prepared to expose every weakness in the young Filipina's game. Eala was not simply fighting an opponent. She was battling pressure, expectations, and impossible odds all at once. The enormous expectations of an entire nation continued pushing Alex Eala forward, even as exhaustion began taking over her body. Her racket swings grew heavier with every rally, but mentally she refused to back down. Right from the opening games, she attacked fearlessly, firing powerful ground strokes and controlling the pace with confidence far beyond her years. The crowd inside court Philippe Chatrier exploded as she captured the first set in dominant fashion, 6-3. The noise was thunderous. Philippine flags waved wildly across the stadium while chants echoed through the Paris air. For a moment, it felt like the young Filipino was unstoppable. But experienced veterans rarely surrender quietly. Her opponent immediately changed tactics and turned the match into a brutal test of endurance. Heavy topspin shots began pushing Eala far behind the baseline, forcing her into exhausting defensive rallies. The physical damage from her previous marathon match slowly became impossible to hide. Her movement lost its sharpness. Her breathing became strained. Every point demanded more energy than the last. The pressure surrounding her started closing in from every direction. Millions of fans were watching. Thousands inside the arena were hanging on every shot. Each mistake suddenly felt enormous. Every missed forehand carried the weight of expectations from supporters who had traveled across the world just to witness her historic run. Sensing weakness, the veteran opponent became relentless. She attacked Eala's movement, stretched her across the clay, and forced her into longer exchanges designed to wear her down mentally and physically. The match transformed from a showcase of talent into a war of survival. Anyone who has ever carried crushing expectations understands how isolating those moments can feel. When the pressure becomes overwhelming, there are only two outcomes. It either breaks you apart completely or forges something far stronger inside you. That is why stories like this resonate so deeply with people everywhere. They remind us that resilience is often built in the darkest moments. As the second set slipped away, the atmosphere inside the stadium changed dramatically. After cruising through the opener, Eala suddenly found herself trapped in a nightmare scenario. The veteran claimed the second set 6-4 and shifted all momentum to her side. The famous red clay of Paris is unforgiving. It drains players physically and mentally with endless movement, heavy sliding, and punishing rallies. For a young star still trying to establish herself on the world stage, the toll was becoming obvious. Every step looked slower. Every breath sounded sharper. Meanwhile, the veteran expertly continued dismantling the match with deep defensive slices, high-bouncing shots, and ruthless patience designed to break the young Filipina point by point. The veteran continued executing her strategy with ruthless precision. She drove heavy shots deep into the corners, forcing Eala to sprint endlessly across the clay for every single point. What had started as an electric celebration slowly transformed into a nerve-shredding battle of survival. Inside the packed stadium, the energy shifted dramatically. The sea of Philippine flags that had waved non-stop earlier in the match began slowing down as anxiety spread through the crowd. Even the deafening chants grew quieter. Fans could sense the exhaustion taking over their young star. Under the brutal Paris heat, the red clay looked unforgiving, draining every ounce of strength from both players. The deciding set became a masterpiece of resilience and determination. Eala struck first, breaking serve early and racing to a 2-0 lead that reignited the stadium. The crowd roared back to life, believing momentum had finally returned to their hero. But the experienced veteran refused to collapse under pressure. She answered immediately, breaking back and leveling the set at 2-2. From that moment forward, the match turned into pure warfare. Momentum swung violently from side to side like a pendulum. Neither player gave up control of the baseline without a fight. They exchanged crushing rallies, delicate drop shots, and impossible defensive saves that pushed their bodies to the limit. Every point felt heavier than the last. The physical toll became almost painful to watch. Sweat poured down their faces. Their legs dragged through the clay. Even viewers at home could feel the exhaustion radiating through the screen. Then the scoreboard reached 4-4. This was the moment where careers change forever. The tension inside court Philippe Chatrier became unbearable. Thousands of spectators sat frozen in silence, barely breathing as every shot echoed through the stadium. In the front row, Elon Musk leaned forward in complete focus. The billionaire who constantly lives in the future was fully locked into the present moment. He ignored his phone, his companies, and the outside world as he watched the young Filipina battle through unimaginable pressure. The next game became absolute agony. The players reached deuce. Then advantage. Then deuce again. Each rally turned into a brutal war of endurance. One deuce became two. Then three. Then four. By the fifth deuce, the entire stadium felt paralyzed with tension. Eala looked completely drained. Her legs burned with exhaustion as she wiped sweat from her eyes and stared across the net, refusing to surrender despite the overwhelming pressure closing in around her. Eala was standing on the edge of complete collapse. One wrong shot, one small mistake, and the match she had fought so hard for would disappear forever. The pressure inside court Philippe Chatrier felt unbearable. Every fan in the stadium could sense how close the moment was to slipping away. Across the net, the veteran showed no mercy. She bounced the ball calmly, then unleashed a blistering serve directly at Eala's body at nearly 120 miles per hour. It was the kind of shot designed to break a tired opponent mentally and physically. But Eala refused to crack. At the fifth deuce of the game, running almost entirely on instinct, the young Filipina stepped around the ball and fired a fearless forehand return. The shot exploded across the court with incredible pace, flying past the veteran before she could even react. The stadium erupted instantly. 5-4, Eala would now serve for the match. Fans stood frozen in disbelief for a split second before the chants slowly returned. Laban, Laban, Laban echoed softly through the massive arena, growing louder with every passing moment. Hope was alive again. Then something happened that nobody inside the stadium would ever forget. During the most important changeover of the entire match, Elon Musk suddenly stood from his front row seat. The billionaire walked directly toward the edge of the court holding a megaphone in his hand. Tournament officials looked stunned. Spectators pulled out their phones. Nobody knew what was about to happen next. Musk ignored the strict traditions of tennis etiquette and raised the megaphone toward the crowd. His voice boomed across the stadium speakers as he looked directly at the exhausted young player sitting on the bench. He told her he had watched her fight through impossible pressure. He told her the entire world could see the weight she was carrying for her country. Then he pointed toward the packed stands filled with Philippine flags and black shirts. He told the fans to stand tall, wave their flags proudly, and scream her name with everything they had left. Then he raised his fist into the Paris sky and shouted one word into the megaphone. Laban. The stadium exploded. More than 15,000 voices answered in perfect unison. Laban. 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 The roar shook the arena like thunder. Even the clay dust seemed to vibrate beneath the players' feet. For Eala, that moment changed everything. She wiped a tear from her face, turned toward the sea of black shirts in the crowd, and gave a small nod. Suddenly, the exhaustion in her body seemed to disappear. The crushing pressure transformed into pure energy. With the entire stadium behind her, she walked back to the baseline ready to serve for the biggest victory of her life. Eala walked to the baseline with the entire stadium holding its breath. The pressure of the moment was enormous. One game separated her from the biggest victory of her young career. One game separated her from tennis history. She bounced the yellow ball once, then twice, then a third time. For a brief second, the noise around court Philippe Chatrier disappeared completely. She glanced toward the stands and saw her mother with both hands pressed tightly together in prayer. Nearby, Elon Musk stood silently near the front row, completely focused on the moment unfolding in front of him. Eala took a deep breath and tossed the ball high into the Paris sky. Her first serve exploded down the center line with fearless power. The veteran opponent reacted late and barely touched the ball. 15-love. The crowd erupted instantly, sounding like a roaring jet engine echoing through the stadium. Philippine flags whipped wildly through the air as chants echoed from every section of the arena. Eala calmly walked back to the line. The exhaustion in her legs no longer mattered. The pressure no longer mattered. She fired her second serve wide with even more aggression. The veteran stretched desperately and clipped the ball with the edge of her racket, sending it flying harmlessly into the stands. 30-love. The black Laban shirts throughout the crowd created an intimidating wall around the court. The atmosphere felt less like a tennis match and more like a global event. On the next point, Eala delivered another heavy serve that pushed her opponent deep behind the baseline. She immediately stepped forward and took control of the rally with aggressive precision. A crushing cross-court forehand forced a weak defensive lob into the air. Without hesitation, Eala smashed it away. 40-love. 3 match points. Nobody inside the stadium dared to move. Thousands of fans stood frozen, staring at the court as if the entire world had paused for one final moment. Eala bounced the ball slowly and prepared to serve again. She swung with every ounce of strength left in her body. The serve drifted slightly wide, giving the veteran one last chance. The return floated weakly back toward the center of the court. That was all Eala needed. She stepped inside the baseline, saw the open corner, and unleashed a devastating forehand winner that rocketed across the clay before her opponent could even react. Match point 6-3, 4-6, 7-5. The stadium exploded into absolute chaos. Fans screamed, cried, waved flags, and embraced each other as the young Filipina collapsed to her knees on the red clay. Her racket slipped from her hand while tears poured down her face. Months of pressure, sacrifice, and expectation came crashing out in one unforgettable release of emotion. Elon Musk remained standing quietly near the court, visibly moved by what he had witnessed. The billionaire known for building rockets and changing industries seemed completely captivated by the determination of one athlete refusing to surrender. As Eala slowly walked off the court to a thunderous standing ovation, Musk waited near the tunnel entrance. He congratulated her and told her he had watched rockets land on moving platforms in the middle of the ocean, but he had never seen anything quite like that performance. Eala smiled through tears and thanked him for supporting the crowd and believing in her. Musk shook his head and replied that the shirts were never the reason he believed in her. He handed them out because he already knew she was special. That victory became far bigger than one tennis match. Her dramatic 6-3, 4-6, 7-5 triumph instantly shook the tennis world and pushed her projected ranking into the top 35 globally. For the first time in her career, Eala had reached the third round of a Grand Slam tournament. She was no longer just a rising prospect. She had officially arrived on the world stage. Eala was no longer viewed as just another promising young player on tour. After her unforgettable performance in Paris, she had officially become a serious threat to the established order of women's tennis. Inside the locker room, top-ranked players who once overlooked her were suddenly paying very close attention. But the biggest explosion was not happening on the clay courts of Roland Garros. It was happening online across millions of screens around the world. The footage of Elon Musk handing out custom black Laban shirts spread across social media at unbelievable speed. Within a single day, clips from the match and the crowd reaction had gathered tens of millions of views worldwide. People who had never followed tennis before suddenly became fascinated by the young Filipina star at the center of the story. Students in Tokyo, office workers in New York, and families gathered in Manila were all watching the same emotional moments replay again and again. The internet became consumed by the atmosphere inside Court Philippe Chatrier. Hashtags connected to the event instantly dominated global trending pages. Sports discussions exploded across every platform as fans debated whether they had just witnessed the beginning of a new global sports phenomenon. Even major entertainment headlines and political stories struggled to compete with the momentum surrounding Eala's breakthrough. Official tournament accounts fueled the frenzy by posting dramatic wide-angle photos of the packed stadium transformed into a massive sea of black shirts and waving Philippine flags. The images looked cinematic. The energy felt historic. Algorithms across multiple platforms pushed the clips even further, turning the match into a worldwide talking point almost overnight. Behind the scenes, media teams scrambled to keep up with the tidal wave of attention surrounding the young star. Interviews, highlight packages, and reaction videos flooded the internet as broadcasters realized the scale of what had just happened. During her post-match press conference, Eala appeared physically exhausted but emotionally glowing. Smiling softly, she admitted that seeing Elon Musk sitting courtside felt so surreal that she initially thought she was imagining it. She even joked that she needed confirmation from her coach that the entire scene was actually real. But she quickly explained that the shirts and the viral moment were never truly about celebrity attention. According to Eala, the gesture represented recognition for the fans who had supported her journey from the beginning. It was proof that the passion and sacrifices of her supporters were finally being seen on a global stage. Later that evening, Musk added even more fuel to the worldwide conversation when he posted a photo of the roaring crowd waving flags in unison. In his caption, he reflected on building rockets, electric cars, and futuristic technology, yet admitted he had rarely witnessed anything as emotionally powerful as thousands of people chanting together with complete belief. He ended the message with a statement that instantly spread across the internet. Eala, he wrote, was not simply an athlete. She had become a movement. And according to millions watching around the world, the movement was only beginning. In the end, the unforgettable spectacle in Paris was never truly about Elon Musk. It was never about billionaire headlines, viral marketing, or celebrity attention. The real story belonged to a young athlete who refused to let pressure, controversy, and exhaustion destroy her dream on the biggest stage of her life. Musk did not create Eala's rise. He simply amplified it so the rest of the world could finally witness what Filipino fans had already believed for years. That is why the moment connected so deeply with millions of people around the globe. Everyone loves an underdog because underdogs remind us that determination can survive even in impossible situations. When Eala stepped onto the legendary clay court that afternoon, she carried more than just a tennis racket. She carried the emotional scars of a brutal first-round battle filled with pressure and controversy. Across the net stood an experienced veteran who understood exactly how to expose every physical weakness on clay. There was nowhere to hide. No teammates to rescue her. No shortcuts to survival. Inside those white lines, she stood completely alone. Yet somehow, she found another level of mental toughness that cannot be manufactured in expensive academies or luxury training camps. It comes from something far deeper. Some athletes possess a fire that refuses to go out no matter how intense the pressure becomes. Over the course of that unforgettable match, Eala proved to the sporting world that she belonged in that category. The impact of the match stretched far beyond tennis itself. Years from now, when future generations of athletes chase impossible dreams, many of them will remember that afternoon in Paris. They will remember the roaring crowd dressed in black. They will remember thousands of fans standing together in unwavering support. They will remember a global business icon pausing his fast-moving world just to witness pure human resilience in real time. Most importantly, they will remember the message behind it all. Relentless dedication can force the world to pay attention. But professional tennis does not slow down for emotional moments. The celebrations inside Roland Garros could only last a few hours before reality returned. Recovery sessions, ice baths, media obligations, and preparation for the next opponent immediately took over. Because waiting in the third round was an even greater challenge. Standing directly in Eala's path was the dangerous number 12 seed, Maria Sakkari. The Greek star was known for her explosive power, elite conditioning, and relentless intensity from the baseline. She could turn long rallies into physical punishment and attack weaknesses with ruthless precision. For Eala, the pressure was about to become even more intense. The spotlight surrounding her had exploded beyond control. Expectations from fans around the world were rising rapidly after her breakthrough victory. Every sports network wanted interviews. Every social media platform was discussing the Eala effect. Now the biggest question remained unanswered. Could the momentum of this incredible underdog story carry her past another elite opponent? Or would the dream finally collide with the harsh reality of top-level tennis? One thing was certain. The entire world would be watching the next chapter very closely.